Right, same colour bishops, bishop and pawn versus bishop. Black to play, pause the video. What would you play? Black has actually only one drawing move here. It's pretty important to understand the defence that needs setting up. The first sort of obvious thing to say is that when you've got a bishop and pawn versus bishop, if the defending side can get their king onto, in this case, any light square that blocks the route of that pawn to promotion. So, I mean, obviously, if the black king was on c8, it's a draw. Or if the white king was back on c2, then if the black king sat on c4, c6, or c8, it's just a draw. You just move your bishop around forever without it getting taken. I mean, the fact there's three different squares in that second scenario just sort of goes to show the only way that bishop and pawn is ever really going to be a win against the same coloured bishop is if the pawn is pretty far advanced and there's a way to throw the bishop off the defence of c7. Because all the defending side's going to do, if you like, one plan they could have is just guard c7 until the pawn moves and then take it. So the only way the attacking side is going to win is if they can somehow manage to clear this bishop off the defence of c7 and also not have the c7 square blocked by their own bishop so they can push it forward. So, I mean, if it was white to move, then it is actually a win for white, but it's not immediately obvious how. So you would challenge the bishop on c7, and I mean, if you imagine a white bishop on c7 at any given time, if the white bishop goes this way, the black bishop, I don't know, let's say it's on d2. Actually, it can't be on d2 because well, it doesn't matter about forget about whether a bishop's going to be taken. Just think about direction. If the white bishop goes that way, the black bishop could go this way and guard the c7 square, and if the white bishop moves on this diagonal, then the black bishop can go that way and guard the c7 square. And I appreciate that bishop a5 would just get taken if the black bishop was actually on d2, but we've got sort of one of those fortune teller things going on. So challenge on the c7 square isn't going to work. If white ever challenges the black bishop on the b8 square, that's not a problem for the defense either, because black just takes it and then takes the pawn on c6. So what the attacking side needs to try to do is to force the bishop onto the defense on this diagonal and then challenge it on b6. If the attacking side can set that up, then yeah, black's had it basically. Which might have given away what you need to do on your next move, because you're thinking, well, you couldn't put your bishop on b6 if I was also guarding the b6 square, could you? I was like, no. What should black play? Let's see what happens if black just sort of does nothing and just says, you can't do anything here. I'm just going to do that fortune teller thing that John just talked about. Some of you are watching, what's he talking about, fortune tellers? I know there must be at least one person of the 4 people that end up watching this video who knows what I'm talking about with one of those fortune teller things. They go that way and then they go that way. Anyway, I used to make them at school. Even the 4 people watching this video are thinking, what? Yeah, so what does white do? They challenge on c7. You think, well, that's all right. I'll just come over here. Bishop goes back to f4. Fine, I'll come back here. But here's your problem. Now we're coming to b6. What black wants to do is play king b5. But you heard it from me first. Kings can only move 1 square at a time. Which means we have to get our king to b5. Which means that one of our next 2 moves has to be to either c4 or c5. It's on the way to b5. But then you've got to think about which square. And there's a couple of things you need to watch out for. Okay. Remember that if the white bishop could challenge our bishop on b8, we're thinking, well, that's not a problem, is it? Because we'll just take it and then take the pawn on c6. It's like, well, okay, but not if you've decided to come to c4. So can king c4 be met by bishop b8? No. All right, it's okay. Okay. Why would you want to go to c4 anyway? Why can't you just come across here? Like the most direct as a human being, king geometry again. As a human being looks at it again, this looks like the shortest route. Of course, it's not. They're equally long routes. But why would you not come to c5? What's so bad about being on a dark square? Just be really careful about dark squares and how the attacking side could make use of checks. So king c5, think, well, that's all right. You can check me if you want, but I'm coming to b5. It's like, well, he's not going to check you straight away. He's going to challenge you on c7. And then he's going to check you on the way back. Oh yeah, I didn't think about that. It's like, well, yes, you needed to think about that. Hypothetical person, you did need to think about that. So, bishop g3, blunder, king c4 is the drawing move. And then how would it go from here? Challenge, do the fortune teller thing. And as soon as white tries to set up, they're coming to b6. No, you're not. Okay. And then bishop g3. Bishop d8, challenge, move, and it's just the same. We've got control of b6 square, the b6 square now. If the white bishop moves on this diagonal, we come to f4. If the white bishop moves on this diagonal, we come to d8, and we just keep going around in circles doing that until we get to the 50 move rule. If we get challenged on b8, we take on c6. And we can't be challenged on b6 because we would just take that bishop. So that's the draw. Now, back in 1987, both Karpov and Jan Timman, I would guess, knew about that draw inside out and found themselves in this position with black Jan Timman to move. Pause the video and decide what would you play here next as black. It looks at first as if black's in a lot of trouble. I mean, it looks like black's just lost. So yeah, bishop c5 immediately gets challenged by bishop d6, and black can just resign. Okay. So you think, what on earth do I play? And it's one of those moves. The first move is one of those moves that you would find. It's one of those annoying moves that someone finds because it's the only move they could find. I've been in positions at the board like that before where I'm thinking, I bet they wouldn't find that if it wasn't the only move left. But also I've been in the other side where I've found the move because it is the only move left. So yeah, bishop d8, which can't be taken because the king takes on e6. I mean, Karpov played bishop d6 here, but if bishop c7, it's not as effective as playing it when the black pawn's on a5, because you're not going to win the a pawn for it, and we'd probably just see something like bishop g5, bishop back to d6, king e4, and this king's coming to do the rear opposition thing. The problem white's got is that although without the a pawn it would be a winning position, if black didn't have this, white has won, because white's going to do the challenge in the bishops and sort of chase it round in circles until it ends up on this diagonal, and you've got just enough time to challenge it on d6. Here that's not going to work because black's a pawn's just going to run, basically. I think they end up queening at the same time. Anyway, so bishop d8, bishop d6 was played, and there the a pawn just goes. Okay. So then bishop c7, bishop back to g5, takes the a pawn, and that was just enough time to bring the king to d5. And yeah, we need to think about it. The two possible routes to d5 are this one and this one. Okay. This time we have to stay in contact with the pawn because white can play bishop d8. Okay. If the white bishop was on b4, it's ready to challenge on e7 and come back and deliver a check on d6. So if the white bishop was on b4, king e4 would be the drawing move. But the white bishop's on a5, so king e5 is the drawing move. I think Karpov agreed the draw there, but just to see, bishop d8 takes and takes, or in fact, what else is there to see, to be honest? There's nothing else to see, is there? If the bishop moves, the king's coming to d5, which is probably why Karpov didn't bother doing that and just agreed the draw. So that's the defensive procedure. Rear opposition. That position was interesting because without the a-pawn, black's not got enough time to get their king to d5. They're one tempo short, but Timman used that a-pawn to gain the extra tempo needed. Right. Next then, white to play. Pause the video. What would you do? So based on what we've talked about so far, you might be thinking, well, there's no point coming to b8 because then black's got the rear opposition straight away, and we already know that's a draw from everything that's discussed. So I may as well try and come to d8. But king d8 actually throws away the win. King b8 was the correct winning move. As an aside, sorry, not as an aside. So the reason king d8 is not gonna do it is that the square you want to challenge the black bishop on is d7. Okay, so the way that white would win this is they would chase the black bishop round the board, and then when it's on this diagonal, they would challenge it on d7. That's how white would win that. But there's just not enough time here. So black can just play king c5, the king's coming to d6, and the defender's going to be absolutely fine with the fortune teller thing, that defense with the rear opposition from the rear. Rear opposition from the rear. So what's so special about king b8 then? Well, the point is that this defense falls apart if one of the diagonals you need to use in the fortune teller thing, in this case this one, has 3 or fewer squares on it. And what you want to do as the attacker is control 2 of those squares with your king and the other one with your bishop. If you can do that, which you can, as long as your king's in the right place, it's going to be a win. And after king b8, I mean, you can actually see that black's just in enormous trouble already. I mean, what do they even play here? If king c6, we've got bishop c4. It's just immediately we're controlling all 3 squares. Bishop b7, we'd see bishop d5 check, amongst many other things. If bishop b7, I think we can still play bishop c4, can't we? Yeah. And then king c6, bishop d5 check. It's all over. So I mean, it's a fairly easy position, that one. Just king b8 wins, and it's because it's a short diagonal. I think if you gave this position to someone who wasn't aware of the main defense with the rear opposition, they would just play king b8 without thinking about it. Right, pause this one. Black to play. What would you do? So black's got an obvious exchange of pawns trick, if you like, up their sleeve, leaving them with bishop and pawn versus bishop. But our king is massively offside at the moment on b7. And if we can get it to g8, that'd be amazing. In the game, black miscalculated or just didn't calculate and played f3 check straight away. And this just led to an immediate loss. I mean, the bishop has to come back to f8, of course, to guard the g7 square. By the way, the only reason any of that was an option at all is because all these moves were arriving with check. So yeah, bishop back to f8, and then the white king comes in, the black king comes across. Okay. Black sort of desperately tries to get their king in, clearing the f8 square. King f6, king e8, bishop to a3. What does black do now? They don't really want to play a king move, taking their king back to the d file. So bishop f8, and now controlling this square. I mean, if the white king gets in, black's had it, but there's just no way to stop, the white king getting in. It looks like the black king has to move straight away here, but they can play bishop back and get ready to to skewer the king and anything that lands on g7. But the white king's just in now. We might see king e7 and king h7. It's probably the most sensible move there. So the white king's going to control those two squares, and the bishop is going to control that one. So that there's no way that that black bishop can defend properly on this diagonal. So we see bishop d4, bishop a3 check, king e6. We can challenge the bishop. That's just a bit of a waste of time move, that one, to be honest. Just you sure you don't want to let me get a queen straight away? It's like I don't really see the point of bishop c5, but there you go. Then bishop f8, bishop back to c3, challenge it there. The bishop desperately tries to get to this diagonal. We move back. There the bishop's on that diagonal, but now we challenge it on that diagonal. So lots of sort of driving, going around in circles. You forcing the bishop onto the short diagonal, but then saying, look, I'm controlling the three squares on that short diagonal. So back in the original position, you've got to defend against g7 first, bishop f8, and now when the pawn is attacked, I think now you can play. Oh, so even now, sorry, you can't play f3 check. It's going to transpose, so you have to just bring your king in. Okay, so it's not necessarily going to end up as bishop and pawn versus pawn, because we can see a take, king d5, but it's getting the king across. That's the crucial point. Knowledge of bishop and pawn versus bishop was, just seeing that you can't play f3 check straight away, because you just count out moves, and you could see that the white king was going to basically get to h7, controlling two squares on that short diagonal. Right, this is an interesting position of bishop and pawn versus bishop, where the defending side's going to try and do a sort of frontal defense, or would like to do a frontal defense. They'd like to get their king to g1, but at the moment is being blocked out from doing so. So we've got our defending bishop controlling the g2 square, whilst the attacking bishop has to maintain control of f1. And there's a zugzwang idea going on here that both sides should just be aware of. That you need to sort of understand this idea, because the only way that black can make progress here is they've got to challenge this bishop on this diagonal. Okay. Now, if you imagine we could just pick this bishop up and put it on f3, is that going to help? No, because white just takes it and then plays king f1, and that's a draw. Okay. But if you could pick this bishop up and place it on e4, then takes, king e2, king f4, black's won. Okay, so it's an interesting king and pawn versus king, that position, that one. It's just a win for black. So what on earth does white do against this plan? All black needs to do is put their bishop on e4, and it looks like white's had it. Okay. And what you need to do, I'll just play a waiting move first of all, bishop b7. If I was playing this as black, by the way, I'd play bishop d3 just to see if my opponent knows what they're doing. If they play bishop g2, maybe they do know what they're doing. I'd then play bishop back to a6. Let's say they play bishop a8. I'll go bishop b5. If they don't put their bishop on g2, they know what they're doing. But you never know. I would just move my bishop back and forth on this diagonal, because you're going to catch them out if they don't know what they're doing. And if they do know what they're doing, they know that they can't put their bishop on g2, because this is a position of reciprocal zugzwang. Whoever is to move gets the undesirable result. Because the point is that when black plays bishop e4, we want to play king f1, protecting our bishop on g2. It's the only defense. So in this position, white needs to play bishop g2. Oh. Okay, which is why you don't play bishop g2 on the other moves. Any move along this diagonal, and you're fine. Black might try and trick us, bishop e2. It's like, I don't care. You can challenge me on f3 if you like. I'm just going to take it and play king f1. I mean, let's look at that. Takes, king f1. Draw. So, I mean, I'm going to play a similar sort of thing against Stockfish in a minute. And I don't know if Stockfish is going to try this way of winning it first. Try 50 moves worth of this before going on to a second winning idea, which isn't present in this position, by the way. This is the only winning idea. You just keep moving around, keep putting your bishop on a different square, and as soon as the bishop comes to d3, the defending side must play bishop g2. They must be ready to meet bishop e4 with king f1, which is then a draw. So that's definitely worth knowing. Now, in all of this, notice that if the black king tried to get to the h2 square, okay, then we can also put our bishop on g2, just leave it there, and move the king around. And there's no way for black to make progress. So yeah, let's just hang on. This is bishop g2, bishop d3. We have to play bishop g2. Let's say black just gives up on this. We'll go bishop back to b7, king f4, bishop c6, king g4. I think we could have played bishop g2 that last move, actually. Could we? That's interesting. What if we can play bishop g2 there? Are we also in trouble? Because we can get challenged on e4. Not sure, but we don't need to. We'll play a bishop move and then king g4. And now we have to play bishop g2, of course, to stop the king coming to h3. In fact, did we have to? Oh no, sorry, we've also got this bishop d7 check to stop the king getting to h3. But we can sit the bishop quite happily on g2. And we'll just move our king around until, you know, whilst the black king's threatening to come to h3, we can just move our king. If the black king comes back, then I think we can still play king d2 there, can't we? Probably. I'm starting to think about these things. Bishop there, king back to e1, king back to e3, and we're back in this again. Bishop c4, pass. Bishop a6, pass. Bishop d3, no, not falling for that. As soon as you play bishop d3, I'm playing bishop g2 because I have to stand ready to meet bishop e4 with king f1. So, yeah, so that's definitely a nice little position worth knowing about in the bishop and pawn versus bishop of the same colour. And again, notice that black couldn't get around on a second winning idea. Okay. So, this position is white to play. There's going to be a similar thing going on. I'm going to play this as black now against Stockfish. Stockfish is going to play this. Absolutely has to play that, because otherwise we're going to put our king on d8 and there's nothing to talk about. Okay, so bishop h5 is going to be the first move. And then we're going to straight away be in that position of reciprocal zugzwang possibilities that both, well, I'm going to be the defending side and I've got to try and be aware of. But there is a second winning plan for white because there's space over on the queen side for the king to come in. Now I'm hoping Stockfish will do a little bit of messing about first, trying to make that forcing the reciprocal zugzwang position work before heading off to the queen side. Although I've got a feeling it's not going to. I think it's going to go straight for the making its way to the king side, queen side, sorry. Which it says in the Book of Jesus is the more dangerous plan. Okay, so bishop h5. I'm going to play bishop to h3. See, that's a bit frustrating. I wish at least this had been tried. Bishop g6, and you absolutely have to play bishop to d7. Or maybe try bishop f7. Okay, maybe bishop f7. I go bishop. Just keep it on that diagonal. Doesn't matter where. just anywhere but d7. And then bishop back to g6, and then you have to meet that with bishop d7. I wish that had been tried, because that's sort of demonstrating one winning try. But it looks like Stockfish is straight away going around to the queen side. And when this was a knight's pawn a minute ago in that other position, then you could just wait until the king got to one of these two squares and plonk your bishop here. That's not going to work here. In fact, it's going to lose. Okay, so we need to act with urgency here, and we've got to remember the rear defense idea again. So I'm going to start following that king. See where it goes. Okay. Pass. Okay, now I've got to get to that square. That's the rear opposition. Is white ready to play bishop c8? Because if they are, I need to maintain contact with the d6 pawn. They're not. Okay, but if I play king d5, white is absolutely ready to play bishop d7, force my bishop off that diagonal. I sort of do the fortune teller thing, but then there's the check, and d pawn's marching through. So I think king d4 is the only drawing move. Challenge. Off we go. There you go, that's where bishop c6 check would have done it. Okay, so that forces this bishop move onto this diagonal. Challenge, off we go again. Just keep moving the bishop around all day. Oh. I was going to say keep challenging and challenging. Okay, so that's an interesting move. This is the thing, isn't it? You read it in the textbook and the book of Jesus, and this, I don't think this is tried anywhere. But Stockfish is always going to... That's why you practice these positions, these theoretically drawn or won positions. Just practice them against a computer and see where it takes you. Sorry, the reason I'm pausing here is that I'm trying to get the rear opposition going, but I don't know where it's going to be. Like, if I go this way, white can do that, and if I go that way, white can do that. Although the white king's just come from c7, so I could go back to where we were. That works, doesn't it? And then just go back again, and that's back to the same position we're just in, so that must be alright. If they go that side, we've got the opposition, the rear opposition straight away. I'm also wondering whether this is a move. It looks like it is, because whatever white does, if the pawn isn't taken, if the pawn isn't defended, I will take it. So I will play king takes d6 next move. If the pawn moves, I'll take it with the bishop. So the only way white can even hope to win the game is to defend the pawn with the king. And if the king goes... The king can't go to d7. If it goes to c7, I shall get the opposition from the rear. If it goes to e7, I'll get the opposition from the rear. I think that move's fine on account of we're either going to have the opposition straight away, or if white goes this way, I can go back to the position we're just in. But I think this move's also fine. There you go. And there's the rear opposition. So this is move 13. and now there's just absolutely nothing that white can do. The king just can't move because my bishop's controlling d7. The only time my bishop's not controlling d7 is now when white's own bishop is on it. So that means the white king can never move. The white pawn can never move because whenever it's ready to move, my bishop's controlling d7. So all white can do is move their bishop around. If it lands on d7, I disappear ready to jump to whichever diagonal it doesn't go to. So I think what we're going to see here, in one of the most boring videos ever, is Stockfish do another 28 moves without threefold repetition. Which does give us a bit of confidence. Well, it gives me a bit of confidence to see that yep, I've got this sussed. It was a shame he never tried the other, the Zugzwang thing I talked about at the start. As a human being, you should definitely try that first to see if your opponent knows what they're doing. And then you should try an invasion on the queen side, as we saw here. But let's mix it up a bit. Obviously, we should try to be mixing it up a bit. I wouldn't mix it up a bit in a game, but just to show that it doesn't matter where you go on that diagonal. It's just stay on that diagonal. I think here's fine as well, isn't it? Don't see why not. We can see bishop back to d7 at some point. Nope. Maybe bishop to d7 now. Nope. Just another 6 moves. Yeah, you're probably already convinced by this and thinking, yeah, he didn't really need to do this bit, John. Hey, so that was white's 50th move, and it's done. Right, one final position to look at, which sort of introduces one final new theme, whilst including one of the themes we've already been through. It's this position here. It's from a game between two very highly rated players. It happened back in 2012, and despite being very highly rated, both players' next move was a calamity, basically, and just shows they didn't really know about this particular theoretical position. And this time it's about frontal defense. So that's like the last theme that's going to be worth talking about, is that sometimes a frontal defense is what's needed. Notice the black pawn has to cross 2 light squares now to get promoted. If it can get to f2 though, and this white king is still sort of shoved, this side of the f file, then we're going to be in the short diagonal situation. So that's going to be that's kind of pretty important in this whole position, and it is why white wants their king on g1. Okay, if white gets their king to g1, it is just a draw. And one of the reasons it's a draw is that you would keep your bishop on this diagonal, and if you get challenged on f3, then you're going to do the fortune teller thing. If black challenges you on g4, which is the way to make progress, you can take and play king g2. Okay, whereas you can't do that from the other position. So yeah, I mean, in the game, white played bishop d1, which straight away should lose the game. Black returned the favour with bishop e6. And I'll just show you how the game went, because now both sides just played it well. King f1, bishop d5, king g1. And there was just, yeah, nothing that black could do. A challenge on f3, you do the fortune teller thing. I mean, the game was just agreed a draw there. But, I don't know, let's say bishop g4, bishop d5. Let's chuck it back on that diagonal. I suppose we need to come and challenge on f3 to then re-challenge on g4, don't we? So let's go back there, bishop back to d5. Let's come back to e2. Yeah, I'm going to come and challenge on g4, and white's just going to do nothing, because when that challenge happens, we can just take, draw. But in the original position, I mean, white should just play king f1 straight away, because once the king's on g1, you're sorted. But in the game, bishop d1 was played. And now black missed a chance to win by playing bishop e6. The winning move, or one of many winning moves, there's 4 winning moves actually, but the winning plan is what we're going to try and do is we need to force the bishop, the defending bishop, off this diagonal onto this one, and then challenge it on g2. That's how progress is going to get made there. With the white king on g1, you can't do that, because the white king would control the g2 square. Okay, so lots of different ways of doing it, so lots of different going around in circles, but one way is bishop e4, we stay on that diagonal. We've got to remember, we've got to challenge the bishop first to get it off that diagonal, so we stay on this diagonal, get the bishop onto that diagonal, and then come to g2. King e2, bishop g2. I mean, white has to give up control, the pawn's coming through. f3, king e3, and then f2. You think, well, this is alright. Black sort of got themselves in a bit of a knot here. I'll stay in contact with the f2 pawn and just keep my bishop controlling f1. But black can easily get their king to g1. They just sort of get their bishop out the way. We can't stop king g2. You know, the bishop has to maintain control of f1. So bishop c4, king g2, bishop b5, king g1, and we've got the kings controlling these 2 squares of the short diagonal, whilst the bishop is controlling, or the bishop can be used to control that one. Okay, and we've got to throw the bishop off first of all. So engine's saying king d4. It's a strange move. Why is it saying king d4? Saying king d4 is only minus 35, but lots of king moves being suggested. Let's just do something a bit more human, like just move the bishop. Yeah, so we challenge the bishop. Let's go back and do the fortune teller thing. Bishop h3, and then yeah, bishop d7. It's over. Yeah, so that was that last theme. I think I'm going to call it a day there, but I've got loads more positions on bishop and pawn versus bishop. I might be wrong, but I don't think there's any new themes. I think I've covered everything in one way or another in that video there.